Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be watching a video called Group B When Rallying Got Too Fast. I have no idea if this is, obviously this is about car racing and rallying, which I think is like the race or the sport where you have like drivers and cars just like on insane conditions, especially like dirt roads, and people I think are like to the side of the cars, which is insane. But I think because when you're like in a car race, I don't think you have like a speed limit, but it says when rally got too fast. So I don't know if this is going to be about car crashes, like because the cars went so fast that, you know, they crashed. I don't know against what, because from what I've seen, I don't know how, I'm not sure like how these races work, but from what I've seen, it's almost like just one car. It's not like other races where you have like different cars like at the same time or very similar because you have like the car like right behind you. And this one, I don't know why, like the cars are just like on their own. So I don't know if everyone has like their own shot and then they just time you and then, you know, the other car goes. I don't know. So I'm super interested to find this out because I have no idea what it is. So come join me and comment, like, subscribe, and start.
Lancia 037 and the Peugeot 205 T16, some of the most iconic names in rallying. Cars that pushed the limits of what was possible in a way that we haven't seen since. It was called Group B and is still held as the golden.
Oh my god, that guy had to move. The car was running.
Group B was a class where manufacturers were allowed to go all out with almost unlimited power, crazy aerodynamics, and new exotic materials. It brought about new technologies like four-wheel drive, semi-automatic gearboxes, and clever turbocharging systems. However, it was only for the bravest of drivers. The hugely powerful cars needed a lot of manhandling to thread them through the tight, twisty stages, away from huge drops and dodging a sea of spectators. But how did this come about?
I'm so worried about the spectators.
The crazy cars that won in the Group B era. Rallying went wild in the 80s. The FIA wanted to attract more manufacturers and so created a class that would give the designers pretty much free reign. No power limits, no regulations on boost,
no regulations.
Materials you liked. Rally cars over the years have been largely based on road cars, with rules tightening and loosening on how close the relationship has to be between the stock car and the ones that actually race the stage. For example, in the Group A class, the manufacturers have to produce 5,000 road-going versions of the car before it is allowed to compete.
That's a lot.
In Group B, to lower the costs and interest manufacturers, they ruled that only 200 cars needed to be produced.
Okay, but 200 sell out as well.
Almost endless modifications to be made, meaning the rally cars were nothing like the road cars at all. This approach really worked, attracting many manufacturers to Group B, names like Lancia, Porsche, Peugeot, Audi, Toyota,
super famous
as well as so many more. Lancia took the Drivers' Championship
in the first
year of Group B with the 037. It was the last rear-wheel drive car to win in the WRC. It was incredibly light, using fiberglass.
Oh my god, yeah, it's so light. The thing's just like
was powered by a mid-mounted 250 horsepower engine. It has much larger wings than many cars of the time, with a huge rear spoiler to stabilize the car at high speeds. It was supercharged to avoid turbo lag, and it was incredibly quick on the tarmac stages. However, it wasn't quite as quick on loose surfaces. So in stepped Audi with the Quattro, one of the most innovative rally cars of all time, a true game changer. It had an inline-5 engine with a very clever turbocharging system that produced over 450 brake horsepower. It had a small valve that kept the turbo spooled even when off throttle, meaning there was very little turbo lag, making the car quick out of the tight turns. The Audi also had a very aggressive aero kit with a huge spoiler at the front of the car and an even bigger wing on the back.
The back, I think, stabilizes
it. This was one of the first sophisticated uses of aerodynamics in rallying. Drivers said it made the car extremely stable at high speed. The insane power was put through a clever semi-automatic gearbox and drove all four wheels. It was the first car to use a four-wheel drive system.
It was in the air for a couple of seconds.
Before this, many manufacturers stuck to rear-wheel drive as they thought the additional weight would outweigh any gains from the extra traction. And yes, the Audi was very heavy, and the four-wheel drive system meant the weight was higher up than you would like in a rally car normally. But despite the compromised dynamics, it worked. The Audi had more power than the rest of the field, but could also use it more effectively, deploying more power even on surfaces like gravel, dirt and ice.
Yeah, because they're constantly driving on those surfaces.
And didn't really stop after that. They shaved seconds, if not minutes, off stage times. The Audi four-wheel drive system really changed the game in rally.
That's insane.
But the Audi dominance didn't last long. Peugeot came out with a car that would expose the weaknesses of the Quattro.
It's smaller.
They used a similar four-wheel drive system but packaged it very differently.
Better?
The secret was that they really nailed the car's dynamics. They built the car to look like the
putting it together.
A small hatchback. It had a very short wheelbase, which generally makes cars more nimble at low speeds with the trade-off of less speed at high speeds. However, rally stages are often so tight and twisty that this strategy paid off.
He almost crashed into those cows. Oh my god, and to the people here.
They could to keep the weight central. They fitted a 1.8 litre engine in the middle of the car, although it didn't have the clever anti-lag system that the Audi did. So the drivers used an old trick to keep the turbo spooled up. They left foot braked for the corner while staying on the throttle. This kept the turbo spooled up and gave them immediate power on the exit. But what was really unusual about the 205 was the orientation they mounted the engine in.
How was it?
Race cars have longitudinal mounted engines with the crank parallel with the direction of the car. However, Peugeot
it's like horizontal
in a transverse orientation, and instead of mounting the gearbox below the engine like in the Audi, Peugeot mounted it to the side. This meant that the majority of the weight in the car was between the two axles and could be mounted lower, making the car much more nimble and responsive in the corners. Low center of gravity means the car doesn't roll too much, and if it's in the center of the chassis, the car is easier to rotate in the corners. The 205's weight distribution wasn't 50-50 though. It placed around 60% of the weight on the rear wheels.
Well,
in simple terms, rearward weight distribution promotes oversteer and frontward weight distribution creates more understeer. This rearward bias meant the car was easier to turn in.
It blinded like so much snow.
You can really see this if you watch the Audi through the corners. The Audi was very front heavy and produced a lot of understeer. The drivers are trying to neutralise this with the throttle, but they have to correct the car several times through the corner.
Yeah.
The Quattro understeers, then oversteers, then understeers again through a turn. The drivers really have to wrestle it through the corner.
Yeah, it's insane in the corners.
No means an easy car to drive.
Absolutely
now,
not.
At the Peugeot, there is one smooth input on the steering, and the car looks much more balanced and easy to drive. There is no wonder it was quicker. It's incredible to watch as these drivers control the car when at crazy speeds on tight and twisty rally stages. Also not forgetting they are threading the car through a sea of spectators on the stage.
They have to move.
But why are the fans allowed to be so close to the cars?
I'm wondering the same thing.
The stages are public roads, meaning anyone could go and spectate. However, it meant that many got extremely close to the cars.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Back then, people did get hit, but it was considered to be part of the challenge for the drivers.
Oh, great! I just got hit. Whatever.
Had to hope that the fans would get out the way in time. This guy even had to jump over a passing car. Many manufacturers understood that Peugeot's approach was the way to go, all producing smaller, short wheelbase cars with all the weight in the middle. MG created the Metro with a distinctive boxy shape and a huge front wing.
I love that shape. It's so particular.
It's
so tiny.
However, it was Lancia that did it the best. They finally scrapped rear-wheel drive after being uncompetitive all year. So they created the Lancia Delta S4, a short wheelbase four-wheel drive monster. Firstly, they developed an engine with a genius twin charging system. They fitted a supercharger to avoid the lag of the turbo, a bit like the Lancia 037. However, this created less power at high revs. As a supercharger is directly driven by the engine, it can provide boost at low revs, but saps more and more power as the revs climb. So what Lancia did was fit an additional turbocharger that would provide boost at high revs. So low-end boost was provided by the supercharger before cutting out and letting the turbo take over at higher revs.
Okay.
This meant the Delta S4 was amazingly powerful and had the grip to put it down onto the stage.
Okay, so it was perfect.
Many wins before eventually bringing the Group B era to a close. This era of rallying was amazing
why did
to
it
watch.
stop?
Incredibly
Stop?
fast cars and amazing drivers all pushing to the limits of what's possible. There were different winners every year and cars that looked remarkably different with incredible engineering. However, you can't ignore the fact that it was extremely dangerous. The cars were too powerful, difficult to drive, and not enough emphasis was put on the safety of drivers and spectators. The biggest issue was the minimum weight rule. Cars could weigh as little as 890 kilograms. So to be competitive, manufacturers would do anything they could to get this limit down.
That's crazy. That's like so low.
That were very fragile and not up to the job of protecting drivers.
The thing is like falling apart.
Many of the drivers explained that if this weight limit was higher, more strengthening could have been added. Oh my god,
how is that guy still driving this car?
Crash. Several huge crashes happened. In Portugal, Santos crested a rise in his Ford RS200. He lost control and went off the course, horrifically injuring 31 spectators.
31?
All the teams immediately pulled out of the rally and it left Group B hanging on by a thread.
Oh my god.
A few months later, the final blow came. Lancia's Henri Toivonen was the championship favourite when he lost control late in a fast turn. He was winning by a huge margin when he and his co-driver Sergio Cresto came flying off the road, heading down a steep hill.
Oh my god.
The impact ruptured the fuel tank, spilling fuel over the red-hot turbocharger, sending the car up in flames.
No, this looks
After
horrific.
the incident, it was barely recognizable as a car, and both Henry and Sergio were killed in the crash.
Oh my god, they died.
This led to many manufacturers pulling out, and the FIA
it doesn't even look like a car.
It's
following nothing.
Year. You should watch this video where I explain what it takes to modify a rally car to set the outright record at Pikes Peak, or this other video that I think you'll love. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, that was a journey for me. I loved like how at the beginning, like everything was okay. It was great. I like all those cars, insane. Like he mentioned, like it's insane how incredible of a driver you have to be to actually like drive these cars, because it's insane. Like those curves and those bends, they look like how can someone like drive this? It's crazy. And I was throughout the whole video, I was saying I can't believe that people are like so close. Why are they so close? Like the car hit him, like they grazed several times. Like the car just like grazes your leg. It's incredibly dangerous. But I thought it was just like the way of the sport. But no, like those like last couple of minutes were like, oh, okay, I can see why it ended. People were like, no, this is actually extremely dangerous. And they had like 2 back-to-back, like very horrific accidents. So I can see why they were like, no, we have to regulate this. Like looking back on it, yeah, it's kind of insane that it was ever allowed for them to just like do whatever you want to. Like, no, just like do whatever you want with the car. I had no idea, like, it was, like, that low. Like, it was, what, 90 kilograms, like, for a car? I'm, like, I don't know much about cars, but I know that they should be heavier, because otherwise this happens. Like, the car's falling apart, because you're seeing, like, this is like, the insane speeds under these insane conditions. There's, like, a lot of gravel, a lot of dirt. Of course the car's gonna fall apart if it only weighs, like, 90 kilograms. I think there's, like, people that weigh more. So, it's insane, like, how are those cars drivable, actually? Like, is this car being able to, like, be driven? On one hand, incredible marvel of, like, engineering, and also, like, the drivers. I can't believe, like, how, like, drivers are kind of fearless. I had, like, how come someone, like, drives these cars and is like, yes, I'm gonna do this race. Like, I'm gonna drive this. I'm so, like, I wish to, I don't know, like, people, you know, like, the guys that drove these cars were like, well, is it like they asked for regulations at some point, or they were like, no, we're just gonna, like, go and, like, do whatever, up until, obviously, like, the horrific accidents happened. But I'm wondering if they were like, no, you know what, like, we should definitely, like, this should be regulated, like, the car should be better, you should be safer, or they were just like, I don't care. Like, I'm wondering if they were like, there was a lot of like pushback on the part of the drivers, or they were like, no, we're loving it. I can see why it was like this golden era on one hand. Again, incredible engineering, incredible drivers, like props to them. But yeah, obviously incredibly unsafe. So I'm glad that it changed, because again, like it was horrific. Like the accident that they showed, like the last accident, it was stuff out of a nightmare. Like I can't even imagine people that were, you know, seeing it like live, either for obviously like loved ones and also like the spectators. It's insane to me because it's awful. Like you could see like the point of view of like where the cliff is, and it's like, okay, this is terrible. But I'm glad that it was like, well, you know what, it was maybe not for nothing, because again, it was like this golden era and they did incredible things, but you know, it had to stop because it was way too dangerous. But it was like, well, you know what, that at least we know as humans that we're able to do these things. But you know, just because we're able to do them, it doesn't mean like, you know, we should, because you know, it's dangerous. But I'm glad that it was like the scientific advance, like great props to them. But yeah, this was incredibly interesting, and I'll see you next time. Bye.